Okay, are you struggling with manifestation and affirmations and you find like it's not working with you? Welcome to part 2 of my series about why manifestation and affirmations were not working for me and how I got around it. Now, in a lot of these videos, you're going to hear me talk about my religious upbringing because I was born into the Mormon religion. And the Mormon religion, just like any other high demand religion or cults, group think belief system, you are pretty much handed your identity from the moment you are born, okay? You are pre-installed with this notion of who you are as a human being and God's plan for you, and that God has it all laid out from the time you're born to the time you die, and even after you die. It's already figured out for you. You just have to follow God's plan. And so instead of you figuring out like who you are and developing your own sense of self, you are really pre-installed with this idea. And then it gets reinforced by not just your church community, but also it's reinforced in the home. So having this pre-installed identity and having it installed so deeply into my subconscious and my psyche made it really tricky for me to then try to practice manifestation and affirmations, because some of the identity aspects of manifesting what I wanted to experience in my life clashed with that belief system and the identity that I was pre-installed with. So I literally had to deconstruct my belief system, and which also caused me to completely lose my sense of self and identity and construct a new one. But in constructing a new one, I had to dive into my belief systems that were holding me back and basically uninstall them with emotional freedom technique. Okay, so the first one I talked about, like my subconscious required proof before I could even be open to believing that I could be abundant and lucky and wealthy, etc. Okay, and then also in this one, we're going to talk about two things that actually coincide with each other. Okay, one, that suffering is good and holy, and that in order to receive money, I needed to earn it and suffer for it. And the belief that being poor made me more spiritual and it would bring me closer to God than having money. So I had this deep down belief that I needed to literally suffer to bring me closer to God, because that's what you're taught. Like in the Mormon church, there was this saying, like, endure to the end. Okay, so basically it's like you live out God's plan and you're going to have a lot of trials and you have to endure those trials to the end, and then you get your reward. Okay, or you stick to the hard things and and work and grind your way to your salvation. Okay, that life is not supposed to be easy, that life is not supposed to be soft, but that you're supposed to work. Okay, and is there some truth to that? Yeah, because life is not necessarily easy all the time. Life can have its easy moments, but it's also going to have its hard moments. It's going to have some grinding in order to get gold coins, and to level up. But your whole life does not have to be suffering, and suffering does not need to be a part of your identity. But for me, it was part of my pre-installed identity that in order to reap your reward, you needed to suffer. So being rewarded in some sort of fashion, getting some sort of financial abundance was linked to suffering. And if I wasn't suffering, then I was not going to be rewarded. And the same thing with a job, because I also thought I had just money only through this one job, but I had to sacrifice a part of myself for my job and work a job that I hated just so I could have income and have benefits and yada, yada, yada. That's just how life worked. You don't get to do what you want all the time. Or in my case, I didn't get to do what I wanted really never, because it was all about what God wanted for me, not what I wanted, because God knew how to keep me safe. He knew what was best for me. I don't know shit, because I'm just a lowly human being. And when it comes to this whole idea that, poverty and poorness and meekness and everything is closer to godliness, and having an abundance of wealth makes you more prone to being evil, is something that is just commonly reinforced, not just in belief, in religious belief systems, but also it's reinforced in a lot of the stories that we hear in comic books and, things like that. Like the comic book villains, like the main villains in Spider-Man, like are these rich, wealthy guys that are, owners of these big corporate companies. The current administration that's just kind of running amok of our government are these really, really rich guys. Like Donald Trump, he's a freaking rich mafia dude from New York. Elon Musk, like all these people are just hoarding wealth and just running amok of our country. And so that leaves a taint, on the whole aspect of being rich. Like, oh, if I get rich and I have a lot of money, does that make me evil automatically? And for some people, there are people that even if I like got this huge windfall of money and I donated every cent, or not every cent, but I just donated a huge portion of it to some sort of charity. Does that make me the good guy? But because I have, this huge windfall of money, does that automatically make me a bad guy? So there's this like kind of moral ambiguity about like, if, that for some people, like I will be seen as the bad guy because all of a sudden I just got all this money. And so it really doesn't matter what I do or what happens, like I'll still be a bad guy. Like I can be a bad guy poor, I can be a bad guy, rich. I can be a good person poor and I can be a good person rich. And in the end, like why is there all this morality tied to money? Money's just a tool. It's just a tool. It grants people access to do things. The thing is, you just have some people that use their free will in the most radical and off-putting ways than other people who have a lot of money. So the way that I kind of figured that out was that I just thought of all of the statements that I heard through my circles of people at church and also just people in the same financial class as I am, and the negative stories or negative beliefs that they would repeat all the time about either people who have a lot of money or just money in general. Like money is the root of all evil. Do I believe that? Yes or no? Money doesn't grow on trees. Do I believe that? Yes or no? Being poor is godly. Being rich makes me worldly. It makes me, a bad person. Things like that. Like whatever those statements were, I just would say them and ask, like, and just be like, I believe this, yes or no. And so they were all positive. And so then I would just take that data and I would go into ChatGPT and I would type out the statements that I said and I'd be like, okay, this is positive, this is positive, this is negative. And then I would be like, help me, create a EFT, sorry, I'm losing my words. Help me create an EFT protocol to, so that I can overcome these beliefs that I grew up with and that I can be more open to the idea of being rich and still being a good person, or not even considering good or bad or morality, or like just get rid of the whole concept of morality around money, whatever it is that I wanted. And then ChatGPT would create the protocol and I would do it. And then after I did it, I would go back through those old statements and pretty much all of them changed from positive to negative. And then it was like, okay, they shifted. Now let's go another level. Let's take it deeper. And then it would take it deeper. And then the affirmations, then I would say like the original affirmations, and then the affirmations would typically be positive again. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comments. Any crazy beliefs that you had around money that was negative, that you want to overcome, put them in the comments. Let's all help each other here.